It is great to be with you this morning. And you are right, MGM, the lights are bright. I do have a love for this profession. In 1985, I decided to start a company. It was fun listening to the panel last night. I discovered back then that it takes more than $500,000 to do that. In 1996, I was shooting some television commercials for a company that had some great products. Ramon and I fell in love with them. And I thought, this could be interesting. I've always loved this profession. There's something about this that's really precious. So I asked my CPA, my attorney, my personal coach to join me, and we put together a team. It took us 2.5 years, and we did have 140,000 distributors. I've been told that's a pretty decent organization. Is that right? Here's a tragedy. The company didn't survive. Didn't survive. 15 years later, the president of that former company came to me and apologized.
With a check?
He will go unnamed. That's an ongoing story that's of very interesting nature. But it is nice to know that it all came back around because it was a painful time. The beautiful part of the story was that a month after it fell apart, I was asked to write the feature film script for one of Og Mandino's books. That's how I found Og Mandino. And a few months later, I'm sitting in New York in the cancellation line of The Lion King with our film crew. And it's January 2000. The world had not come to an end. That was great. And Betty Mandino calls me on the phone, and Betty says, "Dave, the rights are not being renewed to the greatest salesman in the world. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Betty, is this a rhetorical question?" "Of course I would. I love that book." 2 hours in that line. My attorney in California, hers in New York, the publisher in Florida, we put together a plan for me to leave the film industry and to become the CEO of a new company that would bring Og Mandino's principles into the 21st century. And that's where I spent the last 11 years of my life. Now, because Og got his launch because Amway, Rich DeVos, bought like several 100,000 copies of The Greatest Salesman, which put him on the map. Og says that Random House offered him more money than he thought there was in the world for the paperback rights. He was so excited to get this out to the world. That's what launched him. And during his career, many of you here, anybody here listen to Og Mandino speak live? There we go. He was all over the industry. He loved networking. He loved people for the same reason that I love them, and here it is. I've never met a collective group as hungry to figure it out. Just to figure it out. Because the realization of a dream requires certain principles to be in place. And they're often not, and so people work through that self-improvement. We've all heard, this is self-improvement with a compensation plan. Well, the truth is, this business will fillet you wide open. It will expose everything. This is the most beautiful concept in a capitalistic society. Here's why. When was the last time they gave somebody a pin level for being busy? But he worked harder than everyone else. She was so dedicated. Doesn't happen, does it? What do you get a pin level for? Volume. It's results. It is the most results-driven business. It will test somebody to the core. It will expose every flaw in their thought process and personality. That's exciting if you want to become the very best person you can become. It's a challenge if you just want to be rich. That's a challenge. Well, for the last 11 years, we have focused a lot of our energy on this profession because of my personal love for it and Og's personal love for it and this affinity on the part of your profession for his book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. It's on everybody's reading list. Still. It's 44 years old. It's still on everybody's reading list. That's very exciting. Timeless principles. So here we are. We developed with Robert S. Hartman's organization out of the University of Tennessee, a science. It's called the Formal Science of Axiological Mathematics. It's a mouthful, but it was a huge breakthrough in social sciences. It allows us to measure how a person thinks, not what they think. It's a relief. I had someone once say, "Do you remember my assessment?" I met them 3 years prior, and I said, "No," and she said, "Oh, good." I don't know what a person thinks, but I do know how they think. And we know the risks of certain thinking patterns with such accuracy that when we measure a person's thoughts, I can then say, "Well, do you ever have this?" Or, "How do you know this?" Because that's how you think. And under certain stresses and circumstances, those things are going to show up. So doing that personally. Now, we've got a company with coaches who do this all the time, too. I've done personally 4,200 of these, where we spent about an hour to an hour and a half with a person inside a place they rarely let another human being visit. This is our private thought processes. It was so revealing. I've had the privilege of coaching with 3,500 network marketing professionals after doing that assessment and helping them correct some of those issues and maximize their strengths. The book just came off the presses last week. That's how new it is. 4 years. That would come from my sweetheart. Could we pause for a moment? Ramona, would you stand? This is the mother of our 7 children. My sweetheart, we just celebrated our 37th wedding anniversary. And we are like teenagers. We're just madly in love. Still honeymooning. Our 7 children are all married. Our 23rd grandchild is on its way. Should be here in about 8 weeks. It's a glorious part of our life. It's really the highlight of our life. Thank you, sweetheart. She travels with me now. So we get to spend a lot of time reading together while we're traveling, and then we get to do this, then we get to go back and be together. This is wonderful. Thank you, sweetheart. Love you. Here we are, measuring all of these pieces. I spend from 4 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the morning. It's the only time I can. I've got a full coaching schedule for 4 years to get this finally written. Do you know what drove this? Now, I coach with CEOs, a couple of Wall Street bankers. I mean, we've got quite a divergent group, and about 100 network marketers a week, generally in groups of about 20. What drove this was spending time with grown men. Ladies, bear with me, because we've done it with ladies, but when a man does this, cries. David, I can almost touch it. I can almost taste it. Why can't I have it? What's wrong with me? And quite often, does God not love me? When someone gets to that intrinsic level of pain, it's rather significant. And the truth of the matter is, this has got to be the only place in the world where it seems acceptable that out of 1,000 people, 5 of them can make a living. 15 of them will make up to $3,000 in a lifetime, and another 5 to 10 will make some, and somewhere around 95% will become abject failures and blame themselves, destroy their own self-esteem. You wonder why this profession has enemies? I just told you why. Well, there's a reason for this. We found it. Now, we can't correct everything. That's up to a person, right? But knowing what's driving this becomes so important. And I was so excited when Ruth called and asked if I would be willing to come and speak, because I knew this would be ready, and so would the research project that I can share with you the results. So if you want to pull out your paper and a pen, we're going to go to work. This is not going to be entertainment this morning. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's take this profession, which we all collectively love, right? And let's turn this ship just a little bit, because the way in which it's headed right now, it will not survive. You okay with that? Because with credit being crunched, remember the old days? People used to be able to fund their fantasy. We've known the problems I'm sharing with you as early as 2003. We've watched this. We've got our fingers on the pulse of about 15 to 17,000 people at any time in our organization. It is so consistent across the board, every company. Same percentages. It's almost scary. This is such an anomaly who gets attracted to and participates in this profession. It's an anomaly. And we started warning companies in 2004, 2005, 06, 07. We became vehement. Oh, come on, please, these people are going to die. And in 2008, the credit crunch came, right? Stock market dropped almost 6,000. Home equities plummeted. Home equity loans disappeared. Credit card limits were reduced. All it did was expose what was already there. It did not create the problem. It's a great thing to know. This isn't a new problem. This is one that's been around for a long, long time. And if we can, collectively, address it appropriately, we could save a profession that is extremely valuable in this economy. If we choose to keep playing 1990s and we keep crushing people, they are going to regulate us right out of the workplace. They're already doing it, aren't they? We've earned them. Can we be okay with that? The way in which some of us have conducted business, we've earned the regulations. That's a tragedy, isn't it? Let's change that. Now, I don't want to sound hypercritical. I'd like to think I'm a part of this. I did start my own company. I spent $500,000 figuring that out. I have built an organization of 140,000 people. I never told anybody that till 4 months ago. I did not until that president came and apologized. I just buried it and left it. Somebody said, you probably should have been saying that sooner. And I thought, well, now retrospectively, probably so. But I sense there's just a little bit of credibility in that because we built it based on the principles I'm going to share with you today. And anybody who wants to apply them can replicate this. I'm going to share with you what's really duplicatable, the real duplicatable piece. So you ready? Okay, let's go to work. Number one, 97% of all networkers have two thought processes in common. These two thought processes allow a person to vividly visualize. What does that mean? You're driving down the street and you miss an exit. Your mind is somewhere else. We sometimes think vivid visualization is seeing pictures. No, it's actually transporting your mind to another place. Right? Vividly visualize. Now, 98% use this gift, and it is a gift. Because every one of you who produces uses it to produce. You see a vision, it ignites your passion. That's a physiological reality. Part of your brain is ignited you normally don't use. Ignites your passion. You work without counting the cost, tracking the time. Anybody experience this? You put in 120 hours doing this and you regretted putting in 40 where you used to work. 120, you don't even think about it. You're so excited. This is what an intentional creator does. This is how they live. It's an exciting way to live. That's 2%. Any surprise 2% are succeeding? 2%. 98%. The same ones who are failing, guess how they use this vivid visualization? They absolutely use it. They are master visualizers. Interestingly, most leaders say, if they saw what I could see, they would do what I do. They don't think like you, but they are as vivid. And when you stand up and go, I want you to picture the sailboat, the house, the car, you're giving them permission to do what they do destructively with even more intention. I'll describe it for you. You're giving them poison. And when they don't do what you do, what do? We go back and teach it with even more gusto. Yes. They're not understanding this. Now, really, I want you to see this sailboat. Can you see it? Yes, I see it. I've got my sweater around my neck. I got the glass of wine. Good, you're seeing it. Wonderful. That's what we think, right? They are seeing it. Here's the challenge. You want to create the sailboat. They just want it to be manifest. Great DVD out. Sit in an easy chair, Lamborghini shows up, right? When it doesn't show up, just do it with more intention. Still no Lamborghini. Now we all chuckle. Well, you got to go do the work. But the DVD doesn't say that if you're not hearing the rest of the story. And they do not. Here's the bottom line. With all the love in the world. One, many people have never learned how to work. They never have. Bless their hearts. They grew up in an environment where they never experienced passion. They've done hard work, and they couldn't wait for 5 o'clock to come and to clock out and get the heck out of there, get a couple beers and a TV show. But they have not experienced passion-driven work ever. Huge percentage. There's another large percentage that have been beat up by life. Beat up by life. And they just want it. Here's your words. You ready? I want life to be easy. I want to be more comfortable. I don't want any stress or frustration. I want time freedom, financial freedom. Has anybody been in a convention where that was the dialogue, the promise? We're feeding the 98% poison when that's how we talk. Poison. They just want it easy, and who wouldn't? Anybody here occasionally say, I just like a little bit, even though we know that's not possible, who wouldn't want it just a little easier occasionally? Wouldn't you like just one day to work just perfectly? Who wouldn't? But here's the key. We're traveling down life. We reach this pivotal moment, and the 2% choose to engage in life. They want to be alive. They embrace true principles. They connect with and serve people. They create value everywhere they go. Loved your comment last night. And they contribute to the world. Well, isn't that what everyone does? No. The 98% want it easy, comfortable, no more stress, and no more pain. I can tell you right now, there's enough pundits out there who are willing to feed them that to sell a book. There are enough companies, sadly, out there who are selling that to get a person to sign up. Oh, yeah. Now, let me walk through and tell you what happens. Because of the vividness, and many leaders did not know they were vivid visualizers. They thought they needed to be taught. They're masters. When they go to the future, here they are in the present, they skip past all of the work to a point when they have the pin level, the cash flow, and then they begin to vividly visualize what they will be doing with the money that's coming in. This is where they spend their day. Now, because it's so vivid, the same brain chemistry, brain circuitry is firing that would occur if they were actually there. The neuroscientists call this a mental construct. They've constructed in their mind what, if we try to describe it, it would be a non-negotiable mental monolith. In colloquial terms, an expectation, a concrete condition for happiness. It's non-negotiable. It's a systemic thought. And a systemic thought is dualistic. It's all or nothing, right or wrong, win or lose. I don't want to get clogged up in all the technical stuff, but just understand that once their mind is locked in at that pin level and that money, they've got the same brain chemistry, brain circuitry firing that would occur if they were there, and the body, through the sympathetic nervous system, is releasing norepinephrine into their body. Do we have any medical experts here? We could talk about norepinephrine. It's a euphoric drug. If it were prescribed, it would be a controlled substance. It's that powerful. They are addicted to norepinephrine. Now let me set this up for you. They go to a convention, and they're dancing in the chairs, are they not? And I don't want to speak about them as deprecating, negative. My heart goes out to them because I know what they're setting themselves up for. And this can be corrected, which I'll share with you in a moment. But they're dancing on the chairs, are they not? Let's say they live locally, about 50 miles away. Now they leave the convention. The first 10 miles, where have they jumped to? What income level per month would you guess? 10,000. Yeah, that's the magic number, isn't it? Probably multiples more than many of them have ever made in a lifetime in a month. They jump to as the lowest amount. This is the expectation we've created. And they begin to spend the money in their mind very vividly. Well, those of you who have made $10,000 a month, you know it doesn't go very far. And because this is so vivid, what do we need to do in the next mile or two? Raise it to 20. 20 is the next one, so you go to 20. That's not enough, so you go to 30, 40. Guess what happens around 40 to 50? They don't believe it. They don't feel worthy. And all of a sudden, there's a crisis of consciousness about making that much money. So what do they start vividly visualizing?
All the reasons they can't do it.
Well, actually, that would be nice, but they actually do something slightly different. They start paying off their parents' mortgages, buying cars for their siblings, solving problems for the community, until they have given enough salve to their conscience to justify going to 60. And once you cross that limit, 60, 70, 80, 92% by the time they get home. You can take it to the bank. 92% will be at $100,000 a month. There's something magical about $100,000. It just about buys everything you can imagine. Now, if you've been $100,000 a month, you know that's not true either. Because by the time you build in overhead that happens in your business, by the time you build in taxes and all the other issues, you'll be lucky if you have $10,000 left, right? But in the fantasy, it's all working. Now, they go home and they go to sleep that night, and norepinephrine is just a great relaxer. You can have tears streaming down your cheeks while you're lying in bed. I mean, you can have them while you're driving in the car. You just brought a Lexus to your parents' house with a big red ribbon on it. You got the deed in your pocket. Some of you may have done this one. And you pay off Dad, I just love you so much. And Dad falls to his knees and he hugs you and holds you and says things that you've always wanted to hear from Dad that he never said before. I mean, we can all have great fantasies. This is the norm. We also teach this segment of the community to do dream boards. Now, I believe in dream boards, but dream boards to an intentional creator represents a target. To a fantasizer, it's a daily destination. This is where they spend their productive time. They just want to be rich. Now, there are people who would tell you, just look at the universe. My wish is your command. Just say you're worthy. This is scary stuff for the 98. I had just ached for these folks because they become increasingly broken, and angry. They are the enemies of the industry. Now, this is what happens. Just had a great fantasy the night before, right? They wake up the next morning to what? Reality. And they go out in their Ford Taurus with its growing rust spots and its Dole for President sticker's got a flat tire. Or the battery's dead. And you know what happens? One of the most horrific physiological realities in the body. They are hit with a 2x4 for having engaged in fantasy. Because it's so real to the mind, the body goes into what is called an autonomic response. That's something you cannot control. You can't stop it. The autonomic response starts by the release of cortisol. That's what that anxiety, have you ever felt anxiety? You know, that's cortisol. It's released in the body to heal wounds and speed up metabolism. The next thing that happens is their fight or flight center, they call it the amygdala, that little almond-shaped thing at the top of the brainstem, sends out an army. They're called dendrites. And they start shutting down their prefrontal cortex. This is where their empathy is, their ability to connect with a person. This is where their practical judgment is located. Brownout. You say, not you, a person can say some really awful things with this part of the brain impaired. Hippocampus, short-term memory. This is where all the scripts are kept. All the memory about the ingredients of the products. Bam! Door shuts just like a bank vault. Wheel spins. Nothing in, nothing out. Rendered emotionally paralyzed. It is absolutely debilitating. This is Monday morning. This is when I get them.